So the Faith Institute has released a new report on entrepreneurship in Nigeria alongside its key conference held today in Lagos. The new report focused on about 6 key areas that require critical engagement, while it presents some data on entrepreneurial footprints across the country. Adenike Adeyemi is the Executive Director of Faith Foundation, and she joins me here now on the show. Good to have you today, madam. Thank you so much.
Good evening.
I'm sure it's been a very big day, a very busy day.
It's been a very good interactive conversation today.
Thank you. I know. So what are the major highlights? Tell me.
So 2 reports were launched today. The first one was our second in the series of our State of Entrepreneurship report. And then there was another one that took a deep dive into better understanding the access to finance gap for Nigerian entrepreneurs.
That's the one I'm interested in. I would want that follows the money.
Yes, it follows the money. So if you look at, capital is the lifeline of any business. And then particularly for small and growing businesses across the country. And you just talked about, just even in terms of our macroeconomic trajectory, people are finding it harder and harder to access finance, and we wanted to discuss, even in these climes and in these times, how do you better bridge that gap where people are saying, well, we do have funds available, but we can't find bankable businesses, and then you find entrepreneurs who are saying, well, we're ready, but we can't find the funding that requires the growth. So we explored the different dimensions from the supply and demand perspective.
Yeah. Was that the remit of the entire conference in terms of what the various speakers spoke to? Was that it in summary?
So in summary, we shared some of the highlights on what we're seeing in terms of the entrepreneurial index. We looked at the enabling environment, perception of opportunities, despite the environment continues to be very high. So people still see a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities and starting a business, but there's still very strong constraints in doing a business. We also saw a slight decline in women-led businesses from last year, from about 42% to about 39%. Young people between the ages of 30 to 39 still run over 51% of businesses, closely followed by those between the ages of 15 to 29. So still a very young segment dynamic.
What about people my age?
Well, they're less than 10%, but we're still seeing some potential with that, because if you then look in terms of the growth and mortality rates, yes, young people create more businesses, but if you look at the lifespan of businesses, you're likely to see older people who retain the businesses that last longer.
Interesting that despite the environment, are we seeing some states in Nigeria where entrepreneurial spirit is still moving the needle?
So we saw higher growth and insights from states like Imo, from states like Delta, yes, from states like Plateau State, where their entrepreneurial index were quite high. Then states like Taraba, Kogi, and even the FCT, we saw a dip in that. Again, it's spread across different spaces. In states like Imo, there's a very high entrepreneurial opportunity that one is seeing, and then you're seeing a better enabling environment than some other businesses. So there are different things that play into how some states do better than others.
Why is that so?
So first off is on both parts. It's looking at the different investments that have been made across the different segments. So earlier this year, the SMEDA and the Small and Medium Enterprise Development Agency of Nigeria reclassified businesses. We always had that micro, small, medium, and large, but they've added a nano segment. So nano segments are businesses that have that are either single sole owner businesses or less than 3 employees. So you saw a wider range of that. You've seen additional investments that are going into certain states, but you've also seen sectoral investments that have also happened, whether through certain intervention schemes and programs that has been put together by the central banks or other development finance agencies who are supporting specific sectoral growth in specific parts of the country.
Are there new ideas around entrepreneurship in Nigeria in particular that we could harvest for women in business?
So the thing about women in business is better understanding what works and can better enable women in business. So we talked about what we've seen as an apparent decline in women businesses, and what we've seen is that you still find a lot of women playing in the nano and micro segment, but by the time you look at them in the small and medium segment, they're less than a quarter. So looking at the challenge around growth financing support is part of what we would require to enable and support women businesses. There's a joke within Faith Foundation that a lot of the male entrepreneurs, when they see programs, they're always saying, oh, there's so many programs for women, but a lot of programs are still very early stage and not also understanding the dynamics around better supporting women. talking about access to finance, there's stringent capital requirements across the small and growing business space, but even much more stringent particularly for women-led businesses. So that's that. But even the nature of a lot of our cultural dynamics around the country. So you see certain parts of the country where if women are better enabled to run businesses, you see them doing and performing better at leading entrepreneurial ventures.
I was really surprised at the state data that you rolled out in terms of certain states that you never think anything is going on.
Yes, and that's the great thing about Nigeria in terms of the diversity of entrepreneurship. One of the things that we talked about a lot in our conversation today is that we can't even group them, even when we say nano, micro, it's even a mouthful to say, but that you also have to look and say some states perform better in creative space, some states perform better in agri space, some states perform better on gender space. So we talked a lot about dimensioning that data from sectoral, demographic, geographical level, but also business growth and business stage. When you're better able to do that, you're then able to say, okay, what is this area's competitive advantage and how do we provide additional investment in entrepreneurship based on that competitive advantage?
Do we need a small business focused ministry?
So I'm one for not having big government, but I'm one for having efficient government. What entrepreneurs want to know is if I need to register a business, or build a business, what are the regulatory requirements? Who am I going to, for what, for when, for where, and how? So first, clarity, reducing overlayering across different ministries, but also making it easier for people to understand what's required of them.
People's Business Ministry. I'm sure you remember People's Bank.
Yes, but we have the Small and Medium Enterprise Agency, Development Agency of Nigeria. Yeah, we have the Development Bank of Nigeria. We have the Bank of Industry. So we do have institutions that do this. There have also been quite a lot of reforms from PEBEC and to enable the ease of doing business. And part of it is around streamlining the requirement so that you go to a single source. So rather than trying to establish another agency or department or ministry,
coordinated ministry for them.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's to solve the problem. It's to solve the problem in terms of making sure that there's clarity in the regulations and policy that guides the operation of businesses.
So folks just wearing bathroom slippers could just walk in and out of that ministry.
You don't even need to walk in and out. Why can I not? It's digital age. Why can I just not open my device and then I have all the information that I need to do? That's what people want.
I'm looking for one idea that will help us. 200 million people. And we're just entrepreneurial and enterprising from sunrise to sunset and find it difficult why we can't just get things done and just get finance to them with so much money around.
So so a flip side of that finance is that it's not everybody running a business that's also meant to run a business. So there's the demand part, but there's also the supply part. You also have to ensure that the entrepreneurs out there, the market weeds out the ones that don't have viable businesses.
Yes.
So when you allow the market to play the role it's supposed to play, and then you allow government providing the facilitation for that, things will even out.
Because we have a lot of trade associations in Nigeria, and they sit on the hundreds of millions of assets.
So one of the things we also spoke about, so one of the largest forms of financing for businesses was through cooperative societies.
Exactly.
And one of the things we discussed was how do you better enable those business network groups and associations where an individual, they also help to de-risk, right, access to funding, but also being able to use data. So we have things like the movable collateral registry, which about 70% of Nigerians do not even know about. At least 70% of people we surveyed did not know about. What movable collateral registry does is that it allows people to use other non-fixed assets as backup for collateral financing. But we're at the point where we can't even say this is how it's fared, this is who has utilized it, this is what works, and this is how we reviewed. So we ended up the conversation with saying that there is the better need to even look at the funds that have gone out there and say, why is it working? What has worked? Who have these funds gone out to? How has it accelerated productivity, job creation, growth? And then what do we need to change in the second iteration of that?
I think I love that, and I want to say thank you very much for coming, Adenike, Adeyemi, Executive Director at Faith Foundation, for putting that conference together with your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you
and
for
congratulations.
having me.
Thank you. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.